I told myself I wouldn't do it. 2 is enough. Twice now I have made a video where we've had a good time making fun of one terrible and one mediocre list from Classic FM of greatest composers or greatest piano concertos, and I thought that was good. We had our fun, but I don't want to continue making videos about the same topic over and over again. But when I saw this list of the top 10 classical era composers, I couldn't help myself. Now, there's no amount of warning or prefacing on my part that could possibly prepare you for what you are about to experience. But I will say the classical era kind of has a vague definition of dates, and that makes a big difference with 2 composers in particular, whether you end the classical era around the year 1800 or whether you include things a little after that point. But thankfully, they clear that up right from the beginning here. It refers to the period in Western classical music from around 1750 to 1820, which is great because that means a large percentage, a large chunk of Beethoven's music will be included, which of course matters a lot to me, someone that loves Beethoven. So you can imagine my surprise when at number 10, we have Beethoven at number 10. There are 9 classical only composers greater than Beethoven. I mean, if the cutoff was a hard cutoff at the year 1800, I could kind of see their point because Beethoven hadn't written a lot of his music by the age of 30. Lots of his great works are kind of like age 30 to 45, age 30 to 50, and there are some after 1820. But to say you go to the year 1820 and then put Beethoven at number 10, I'm sure most of you can't even think of 9 classical composers other than Beethoven. Can you even name 9 classical composers not named Beethoven? Like I warned you guys, this is the most wild, the most crazy, and quite honestly, the worst list I have read so far. And if you aren't sure about that yet, who do you think is at number 9? Schubert. Now, to be fair, if we are doing the hard 1820 cutoff, Schubert has yet to have his 23rd birthday, so this isn't near as terrible as Beethoven at age 50 being number 10, Schubert at age 23 being number 9. It's not as bad, but still, top 10 classical composers, I'm sure you never expected 9 and 10 to be Beethoven and Schubert. So I'm thinking, wow, they must really, really value the earlier composers. They're really punishing Beethoven and Schubert for having lived beyond the 1820 cutoff. So at number 8, we of course get Rossini, who didn't die until 1868. Now, I understand that in the opera world, Rossini is a little bit more of a late classical, early romantic feel. He doesn't quite feel like the big romantic opera composers like Verdi and Wagner. So I understand the pick in that sense, but still, like, where do we go from here? Now we've used Rossini. You've used Rossini, you've used Beethoven, you've used Schubert. We got 7 more composers to go somehow. Now, number 7, we have Joseph, some French last name, Joseph Boulange Chevalier de Saint José. I don't speak French at all, but we have good old Joseph here. Now, Joseph actually is a very fascinating composer. He was born the son of a slave in the Caribbean islands, and he went to France actually for a time. I actually have a quote here from John Adams, so he was at least known kind of around the world. His music is very interesting. It does have a definite kind of Mozart, that world, that era of the classical world. I don't want to play anything for you because of copyright issues. There's no public domain recordings of him. So for like educational, historical purposes, I'm really glad this one was included, but putting it at number 7 ahead of Beethoven and Schubert just makes it look really stupid. Now, I know some of you out there, I know from polls I've given, are real big Mozart fans, and you're probably thinking, Ryan, cool down. Just like, cool down. It's Beethoven. Beethoven is more of a romantic composer. You're just really getting really worked up about Beethoven, right? I'm comparing everyone to Beethoven because Beethoven's number 10. And I know you Mozart fans are thinking, yeah, but Mozart hasn't shown up yet, and we know Mozart's going to be higher up on the list. You're right. Kinda. At number 6, 5 composers in the classical era alone are higher rated than Mozart. It's just so bad. Like, if you ask me who the greatest pure classical composer ever is, I might even say Mozart. Even though I like Beethoven more, I recognize that in that era, Mozart is really the king, and Beethoven's always kind of pushing us forward outside of the era. So I might have them. I would have them 1, 2, and 3 with Haydn in some order. But Mozart at number 6. So if somehow you've made to this point and you haven't been offended because, well, hey, I don't care about Beethoven, I don't care about Schubert, as long as Mozart is number 1, Mozart's number 6. So if you're sitting there wondering, where in the world are they going to come up with 5 classical composers greater than Mozart? I was wondering the same thing. I mean, I assumed one had to be Haydn, but who are the other 4 going to be? Well, we're about to find out. At number 5, greater than Mozart, greater than Beethoven, and greater than Schubert, it's of course. Now, if you're wondering who is Marianna Martinez, so did I. I'd never heard of her before. And unlike sometimes in these lists where I never heard of a person or never heard of a concerto, I give it a listen and I go, I don't know if it deserves to be there, but I get why it's so special. I get why it's so loved. I didn't quite have that effect with Marianna. Like if you watch my video about the top piano concertos, there were 2, maybe 3 I hadn't heard. And there were some like Florence Price. I was like, I really like this piece. I don't know if it should be as high as it is, but I really liked it. Marianna, number 5, is just insanity. Now, apparently there are a lot of masses and motets and cantatas, a lot of sacred music, and maybe that's very good. So maybe if you're a vocalist, you guys sing a lot of her music. Maybe you have, and I'm just out of the loop being a piano player. But yeah, number 5 is pretty crazy. Mozart's pretty well known for his vocal stuff too. You know, she's not the only one. Now coming in at number 4, we have the great, the memorable, the legendary Luigi Boccherini. And once again, if you're thinking you've never heard of this guy and you wouldn't recognize a single one of his pieces, well, you're actually wrong this time. But obviously having one piece that everyone recognizes does not justify being number 4. If we're going off pieces that we recognize, once again, Beethoven should be number 1. But here we are, Luigi Boccherini at number 4 with Mozart, Schubert, Beethoven, Rossini. They're all long gone. We're up to the top 3 by now. And at number 3, I actually have one I agree with. Haydn. I don't know who made this list and why Haydn gets to be above Mozart, Beethoven, but here he is. And I actually agree with Haydn at number 3. If I made this list, Haydn would be my number 2 or 3, somewhere with Mozart or Haydn, or again, if I'm going off only classical, not including Beethoven's late works, maybe Mozart and Haydn are a little above Beethoven, but somewhere in that top 3, we're going to have Mozart, Beethoven, and Haydn. So this is actually a good pick. They put Haydn in number 3, guys. They did one thing right. This has been the only thing right in the entire list. But Haydn absolutely deserves to be right here near the top. He has such a big influence on the style of the classical era. If you look at Haydn's early pieces compared to his late, you see such a development throughout the classical era. Really, obviously prolific in a lot of areas, string quartets, piano music. So Haydn, great pick. It might be the only great pick on this list, but Joseph Haydn deserves to be at least number 3. Good job. Good job, Classic FM. Let's see which 2 composers, should be Mozart and Beethoven, but let's see which 2 composers they say are greater than Haydn. Christoph Wildebold Gluck, or Gluck. I always thought it was Gluck with like the dots over the U, but I guess it's just Gluck. We'll call him Gluck. This gets a little bit of a get out jail free card because opera can just be a totally different world than the rest of us sometimes. Like if you ask a person who's an opera fanatic who goes to operas all the time, name like the greatest composers ever, name your top 10 composers of all time, they're going to have an extremely different list than we have. They're going to have like Humperdinck up there or something. We're going to be like, what? And so maybe not really Humperdinck up there. Maybe they would though if they really love Hansel and Gretel. But you just have a completely different separation of worlds sometimes between the two. So this isn't the worst, just recognizing that opera is kind of its own thing. I would never have him close to my top 10. I am curious about his last name. I'm pretty sure I've always heard it said Gluck, and I've never really thought about it till right now. I'm looking at it and it looks like Gluck. And so you tell me if there's some but German history like 250 years ago where the U is more like the U sound and not the sound. Let's move on. At number 1, if you can recognize him, by the way, based on that coat right there, just that little picture of the jacket, you get like 1,000,000 extra points. But our number 1 is Bach. Now, it's not as bad as J.S. Bach, but Bach's son, C.P.E. Bach. Actually, maybe J.S. Bach would have been a better pick. I don't know. But Carl Philipp Emanuel is a patriarch of a music's unstoppable dynasty and also the greatest classical composer because, you see him play it all the time. When you go to concerts, really the biggest problem with modern music is we over-concertize C.P.E. Bach. Like everywhere you go, it's just Bach, Bach, Bach. We just can't help ourselves because he's the best. He's so good. Come on. piece that we all played way too fast when we were learning how to play piano. Yeah, this is the worst. You all deserve to have as much joy and sadness as I had looking at this list. So go home and listen to some C.P.E. Bach and realize that he's a lot better than Beethoven, Mozart, Haydn, Schubert, anyone else you can think of. See ya.